Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. Happy New Year to you all, and welcome to the first 2012 edition of the show that takes a good hard look at government here in Winstead and asks a simple question. Is your government effective, efficient, affordable, or at all accountable to you? By way of reminder and full disclosure, you should know that the views expressed on this show are those of myself and myself alone. They do not reflect, nor do I seek to represent the Winchester Board of Education or the Gilbert School Corporation, both of which organizations I sit on. We have been off the air for upwards of a month. It has been the holiday season, and quite frankly, I'm disappointed to say that your government has really done very little for you in that month. There has been little reason to be on the air. But we will use the opportunity presented by this evening's show to bring you up to date, with a relatively mixed bag of some things good and some things bad. Although the mere fact that we will have some good things to talk about, I think, is itself positive. One of the overriding conclusions that I would like to leave you with this evening is there are glimmers of light at the end of the tunnel that is Winstead. There is hope, ladies and gentlemen. There are a small number of people who are stepping up to do what is right for you, the community. Whether they will prove successful, whether they will prove tenacious, whether they will keep doing the right thing, is what we shall be reviewing over the course of the coming weeks, months, and years. But there is hope, albeit small signs of hope. Let us place where we are today in context. It has been 63 days since the election. 63 days ago, you, the community of Winstead, elected a supermajority of 5 Democratic members to the Winstead Board of Selectmen. In 63 days and numerous Board of Selectmen meetings, that supermajority, 5 Democratic members, have failed to live up to their commitment to you to provide $1.3 million of additional funding to the Winchester schools. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, my own views on this subject have not changed. My view is that you, the community, voted to give the Winchester schools $18.6 million. You have given them $18.6 million, and that is what they should live by. But my view is academic at this point. A supermajority, 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, ran explicitly on the campaign program that they would give the schools $1.3 million immediately, no questions asked, irrespective of what the audit said, irrespective of what financial impact that had on the town. And in 63 days, they have failed to deliver. They have given us pretty words. They've given us a motion that says they intend to live within the law, whatever that means. Subject to their satisfaction with the audit, whatever that means. Subject further to their satisfaction with another audit, whenever that might occur and whatever that might say. They have not encumbered any funds. They have not made any commitment to provide any funds. Now, this places the schools in a difficult situation. Fully believing that the selectmen would live up to their commitment, that the supermajority 5 Democratic selectmen would live up to their commitment, the Board of Education has, these past 5 months, been spending as if they will get that extra $1.3 million. If they don't, obviously, they will run out of money. Now, the unofficial official position of the Board of Education, and I call it that because there has been no vote, but I believe the chair thinks she has the votes to effectuate this. The unofficial official position is that if the town fails to provide that $1.3 million and fails to allow the board to overexpend its appropriation, then the board will simply let the money run out and close the schools, all of the schools, at whatever point in the year that takes place. This is not an acceptable solution. This is not a responsible solution. It is not the right solution for our community. It is not the right solution for our schools. It is probably not even a legal solution. But that is the official solution, the unofficial official solution of the Board of Education. It is not a solution I support. It is not a solution I will or can support. The choices that face this community are very simple. The Board of Selectmen must agree immediately to encumber the funds to guarantee $1.3 million to the schools, or the school board must immediately retrench to live within its appropriation. Those are the only 2 acceptable choices. Needless to say, in 63 days, no choice has been made. And in another instance of a failure to make a decision in those 63 days, the school board is still suing the town. Still suing you, the community. That was a lawsuit that was inappropriate on day one, and with every passing day it has become more inappropriate. We have major tasks ahead of us, major hurdles. We have to decide whether to close a school. We have to decide how to deal with the budget. We have to decide how to deal with our roads, our infrastructure, our downtown. We have to decide on the future of our town. And yet the selectmen are unwilling to live up to their commitments, and the Board of Ed is unwilling to drop its lawsuit. This is not a good start to 2012. So what has happened during these 63 days? Well, the big one is obviously the audit. As you are all tired of hearing at this point, the audit was delivered, and it had some pretty ugly things to say. And the state has demanded the school board's response to those ugly things. What do we intend to do about it? Now, the outcome of this will depend on a very simple question. Do the federal authorities and the state authorities intend to make us live within the law, or do they intend to give us a free pass? If they determine that it is easier, politically easier, administratively easier, just easier all told, to let us go the simple way, they will hold us to a standard that says, can we demonstrate what we spent the money on? And to give them their due, the new financial administration within the school district has done a good job of collapsing all of the nonsense, all of the hiding, all of the shenanigans that Blaise Salerno left us with in our financial records, and of determining where the money actually went. They have determined, through a myriad of investigations, that yes, the money did go to pay existing teachers of the school district, as the new superintendent has told us. And if the feds and the state allow us to live with that simple standard, then we are frankly out of the woods. We will not, in all probability, have to repay the $636,000, and we can put this sorry episode behind us. If the feds or the state actually require us to live within the law, which is to say, if they require us not only to be able to demonstrate where we spent the money, but if they require us to demonstrate that the teachers whom we paid were authorized to be paid under those grants, if they require us to demonstrate that we have the appropriate documentation to evidence that, we may well be in deep doo-doo. Because we as a board, and I think it's fair to say the administration also, has barely begun to ask that question, much less provide an answer which is almost certainly probably not going to be possible. That documentation probably doesn't exist. All of that being said, the new administration, the superintendent, the new finance manager, their respective staffs, have begun to make credible steps towards ensuring this will not happen again. They are taking sensible, proactive steps to improve our financial record keeping, to ensure the grant recipients are well documented, the grants are well documented, to ensure that we don't have these vast quantities of journal entries without good supporting documentation and clear authorizing sign-off from appropriate individuals. These are important steps. They are small steps. They are steps that should have been taken a great deal of time ago. But they are important, ladies and gentlemen. They are steps forward towards being able to provide you with a clear sense for where your money is going. More will need to be done. We will need, particularly in the area of our grants management, to be able to demonstrate exactly how we use this money and to demonstrate that we do it appropriately. But we are moving in the right direction, albeit in baby steps. In all honesty, I actually think the school's administration has done a better job than the Board of Education in this regard in recent months. The school's administration has acknowledged that the monthly reporting that is produced by this school district is at best unhelpful, frequently misleading, and just as often plain wrong in its detail. As recently as yesterday, we, the board, were looking at a financial report that was wrong in many respects. The administration recognizes this. They have acknowledged it. They have committed to coming up with a better mechanic for producing information and for presenting information in a way that is comprehensible and accurate, in a way that allows folks like myself, who have spent a good deal of time with these numbers, to get a quick impression of what's going on, and in a way that will allow the wider community, who's perhaps spent less time with these numbers, to gain an equally quick impression of what is going on. This, again, is an important step in the right direction. The administration, I think, is taking little steps. We will see whether they're able to deliver on these steps. We will see whether the board is willing to support them, whether all of this will come to, say, successful fruition. But they're making the effort. The wider board, by contrast, has proven all too willing to rubber stamp whatever financial report is produced. To rubber stamp those reports without questioning them, without frankly having any understanding for what they say or don't say, without having any understanding for whether they are correct or reflective of reality. This must change. Our job is to provide financial oversight. We cannot rubber stamp financial reports. And in honesty, this is beginning to change. As recently as yesterday's Board of Education meeting, a member of the board, and it was not me, a member of the board posed the question to the financial staff, what additional information should we be looking at? What information do other boards of finance, other school finance committees look at? What should we be looking at that we are not looking at to ensure that we are providing an appropriate and effective level of financial oversight? This is a question that every board should be asking every day, but it is not a question that we've heard at the Board of Education in a very, very long time. A second board member, again, not me, went one step further and applied the same principles to the overall educational service that the board provides. He posed the question, should we be looking at our educational programs, comparing results to goals, comparing the resources put in to the result got out? Should we be looking at what we spend the money on to determine whether we are spending it appropriately so that we can prioritize between programs, axing those that don't work, improving those that need improvement? Again, a giant step forward. This is a board that has traditionally said, give us more and you will get more. We are seeing the first glimmerings of individual board members, not a majority by any stretch of the imagination, but individual board members beginning to say, allow us to gauge how we spend your money. Allow us to really prioritize, really understand, so that we can do better with your resources. And I think this is a huge step forward if it can be continued, if it can be supported. What else is happening in the district? Well, I'm pleased to be able to tell you that as of right now at least, we approach the winter months with a budget surplus in hand, a surplus of approximately $300,000. Now, before you get too excited, obviously if the selectmen do not provide the $1.3 million they have committed to, that surplus will quickly become a giant deficit. We should also recognize that the winter months are those months in which we face the greatest number of unpleasant surprises. They are the months in which the state traditionally tries to reclaim some of its grants. They are the months in which we have bad weather events. They are the months in which unexpected contingencies arise. But let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen. If everything remains as it is today, if there are no unpleasant contingencies, if the state doesn't reclaim its grants, if the selectmen live up to their commitment to provide $1.3 million in additional funding, as they have committed over and over and over again, then this board should be in a position to deliver a budget surplus, to return to the town, to the fund balance, $300,000 plus or minus. And because that's, ladies and gentlemen, that's what a responsible Board of Education does. If there's a surplus, it returns the funds. It does not spend just for the sake of spending because the money is there. If our board is responsible and continues to live with its budget, there will be money to return to the town. And so the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education leadership can begin to negotiate that, to ensure that everyone is quite clear what is happening, what is likely to happen, what our respective obligations are. Elsewhere, the work of the School Facilities Committee goes on. This is the committee that is charged with determining whether to close a school, which school, when. There will be a PTO-sponsored forum on this subject on January the 18th, and there will be a full town-wide forum on January the 25th. I would urge anyone with an interest to attend either or both of those meetings, to listen to what is said, to volunteer their own views. I will not prejudge the work of this committee. My own views I have made clear to you on numerous occasions. Those views are quite simple. We must recognize the reality of declining enrollment. We must recognize the reality of scarce resources. We must use our physical assets in the most efficient means possible. And by means of extracting those efficiencies, we will be able to finance new investment in our system. I continue to believe, unlike many who maintain that the only savings accruing from the closure of a building will be utility costs, I continue to believe that there are significant costs in the order of $500,000 to be gained from the rationalization of our usage of physical assets. And it would be irresponsible for us not to extract those savings, not to take advantage of that opportunity in this year of all years when times are tough. On a separate note, the board is beginning to experiment with new ways of reaching out to the community, with improving the flow of information. A new committee has been formed, a public outreach committee. They have been charged with gathering a comprehensive set of data that will show by grade, by student, and by school operational results, financial results, academic results. They will be able to demonstrate for the first time to the community what the results of the community's investments in its schools really are. How much are we spending per pupil for regular ed, for special ed? What are our results really trending versus from one grade to another, from us versus the state? What is really happening in our schools, and are we getting our money's worth? If this committee is able to produce that information, to produce it fully and accurately, once again, this will be a huge step forward. And this is a grave responsibility for the board. On the Hinsdale gym floor front, meaningful progress has been made. The temporary floor space is down, the gym is usable, the mold situation is under control. There are no PCBs, there is no lead, there is no asbestos. All of this excellent news. It's taken a while, but it's now done. The most positive aspect of this, however, is the superintendent has become a convert to the idea of more cleaning and less testing. We will use our scarce resources to actually fix problems, rather than hiring expensive consultants to tell us about our problems. This is a return to common sense. This is a return to the way that you and I deal with our homes, deal with our cars, deal with our property. Something goes wrong, we fix it. We know we have to do that. We know we can't just sit there and look at it and hope it's going to get better on its own. We approach budget season. This is always a difficult season. This will be the major hurdle which really demonstrates, I think, whether this board is moving in the right direction or not. We have seen early reports for what our neighborhood towns are thinking of doing. Torrington, the leadership there has called for zero increase budget. Barkhamsted likewise. Litchfield is going one step further. The town and the Board of Education, in lockstep, collaboratively, are investigating the possibility of actually reducing their education budget below the MBR. They are looking at reducing their budget below the MBR, not to punish the children, not to engage in a war, but to simply realize cost efficiencies between town and schools. And they are talking to the state about that. I do not know what the outcome of those discussions will be, either between the town and the schools or between the town and the state. But here's an example of a community working together, exploring its options, trying to do the right thing. We as a board have not spent a lot of time talking about the budget. I think everyone is realistic in terms of not expecting some pie-in-the-sky windfall to be coming from the community. I hope that the community in all of its aspects, parents, seniors, taxpayers, non-taxpayers, members of the Board of Education and members of the Board of Selectmen, can forge some degree of consensus around an acceptable solution. The solution, it is clear to me, must involve achieving efficiencies and using those efficiencies as means of investment. We cannot expect the taxpayers to keep digging deeper and deeper into their pockets, spending more, particularly until such time as we are able to demonstrate that we're getting results for that more. I think, as I have said, that we are taking very, very baby steps, little incremental steps towards being able to demonstrate what the money is being spent on. We need to take bigger strides. We need to actually establish a track record. We need to show the community what we're about, what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it, how much it's going to cost, what the results are, and how we're going to do it better next time. And only when we have that track record can I think we can ask in good conscience for more money. Until then, we must look to efficiencies, we must look to cost savings, we must rationalize our fixed assets, and that means closing a building, ladies and gentlemen. These are the steps that we must do to finance investment in our system. That's the good news. which brings us to the bad news portion of this evening's show. In December, the town manager formally requested of the Gilbert School that they defer their payments from town and schools for December and January to avert a cash flow crisis at the town. Now, Gilbert, being the good corporate citizen, said yes. I frankly would not have been as generous, but there we are. Gilbert said yes, and that the citizenry, both corporate and individual, were able to get together without fanfare, without publicity, and come to a sensible, productive answer is encouraging. What is not encouraging is that the administration of Mayor Welcome sought to negotiate with our largest creditors to extend terms to use a cash crisis as a means to extort savings without once informing the public, the Board of Finance, or the Board of Selectmen. This is totally unacceptable. You must be aware as a community what your government is doing on your behalf. Anything else, unacceptable. In a similar vein, it has fallen to me to vote no for the minutes of the last 3 boards of education. I have done this with a heavy heart. I have done this because these minutes do not, in my estimation, bear much resemblance to what actually occurred at the meeting. Furthermore, these minutes cover up failures by the board to act in ways which a reasonable man would consider prudent and reasonable. Specifically, a reasonable man would conclude that presented with an FOIA request, and that possessing the information required to satisfy that request, that information should be delivered. A reasonable man would conclude that told that you possessed information suggestive of material wrongdoing, you should investigate it. A reasonable man would conclude that told that your minutes did not reflect reality, you'd fix them. The board chose to do none of these things, and the board chose not to reflect any of those failures of judgment in their minutes. The minutes are the legal record of the Board of Education. They must reflect the business of that board, pure and simple. This is your government. It is working in your name, on your behalf, with your money. You must be in a position to understand what your government is doing. Which brings us to the dirty little secret that underlies the whole audit mess. The audit discussion thus far has revolved around the likelihood, the plausibility or not, the credibility or not of the school board, the school district's current explanation of what they did with their grant funds. They paid existing teachers. And now I believe we have the records to prove that. Unfortunately, we also have a different set of records. Another set of records. A set of filings submitted to the federal government during 2009, which also purported to show what we were doing with those grant proceeds. They tell a different story. They tell a story of a school district that is hiring new teachers during the course of the year. This story is a fabrication. This did not happen. This is a story of fictitious teachers, fictitious hires. Now, when you lie to the government to get money, however worthy your eventual use of that money, that is a problem. To use an analogy, if you mug the rich little old lady at the end of the street and give the contents of her pocketbook to the homeless guy at the other end of the street, you do not get to call yourself Robin Hood. You get to call yourself a thief. The federal government is quite clear. The presence of excessive journal entries, audit delays, question costs, these are all considered red flags for fraud. We have excessive journal entries. We have 11 months of audit delays. We have the highest single question costs of any town ever in the state of Connecticut. And we got more, ladies and gentlemen. We have a set of reports that show that we used the money on something which is entirely bogus, entirely fictitious, in clear conflict with what we actually used the money for and what we actually have just demonstrated to the state that we used the money for. Now, federal law is very clear. Any citizen in possession of evidence suggestive of wrongdoing has a legal obligation to inform the authorities. That's a legal obligation. It is not an option. It is not a suggestion. It is not a proposal. It is a crime not to inform the authorities. And so I, in conjunction with a small group of others, co-authored a letter to the federal authorities to that effect. Mayor Welcome has expressed herself outraged that we should do such a thing. Mayor Welcome is essentially telling you that if she were to walk past your house And if there's a man in a mask with a swag bag over his shoulder and your family silver in that bag running out of your house, she would not call the police. She wouldn't do anything. That's the community that Mayor Welcome is looking to build. Turning a blind eye to wrongdoing is not building a community. Mayor Welcome may want to live in that community, but I certainly do not, and I do not believe that you do either. 63 days, ladies and gentlemen. 63 days of a continuing lawsuit. 63 days of commitments made and unfulfilled. 63 days of a school's administration trying to do the right thing, taking baby steps, acknowledging failures of the past. Let us hope that we can provide the support and that they will have the courage and honesty to maintain that. 63 days of the school board grudgingly going along in fits and starts with little shuffles, but of individuals doing the right thing. 64 days ago, the day before the election, it was pretty clear that it was the Board of Selectmen asking the hard questions and the Board of Education staking mum. Today, that situation is reversed. The Board of Education, or at least the school's administration, is moving in the right direction, whilst the Board of Selectmen moves backwards. Let us end on a lighter note. During the campaign, a sitting Democratic selectman was asked what the greatest achievement of the Perez administration was. The response was a second public comment at Board of Selectmen meetings. Whether or not you think that is a good response, picture the situation today. Mayor Welcome's first act in office was to eliminate that second public comment. Whether that was intended as a slap in the face of George Clausen or a poke in the eye to you, the community, I do not know. That is your question to judge. 63 days, ladies and gentlemen. There are glimmers of light at the end of the tunnel. With luck, we may reach that, although the Board of Selectmen is anxiously building more tunnel, looking to drive the train backwards over you, the community. Light of the tunnel, ladies and gentlemen, while they build more tunnel. Happy New Year. Good night.